Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. My name is Olga Atamanova, and we greet everybody who joins us both online and in this studio. It's 9 years of the war and almost 1 year of the full-scale invasion of Russian aggressor in our homeland, and now we will be talking about very interesting topic. We will have a presentation of the collection of the Ivan Franko verses for the front. All of you probably saw our defenders in the front lines who, regardless of the extra difficult conditions in the front lines, they still find time to read the books. We keep seeing those photos. We are being inspired by them. So thanks to this project, now we have this opportunity, and it will have a more of a systemic nature now for our defenders. And I want to introduce our speakers. Right by my side is Igor Kuris, the director of the Ivan Franko International Fund and the author of the idea. Joining us online are Sviatoslav Pilipchuk, the chairman of the board of Ivan Franko International Fund, and Tamara Smovzhenko, head of the Lviv Society in Kyiv. Dear colleagues, good afternoon, Mr. Igor. Let's probably start with you. Dear journalists, you may get this collection. It's right in front of you. So how did you come up with this idea? How have you been inspired, and how do you want to implement this powerful project? Thank you, Olga. Olga, I want to greet you with the International Day of the Native Language, and it's symbolic that on this day we want to facilitate the way for Ivan Franko's collection to the front, and when there is no gun shooting and no rockets flying, so that our defenders can read the word of Ivan Franko. You know, the International Fund or Ivan Franko, if we we should probably produce HIMARS and aircraft, but for the time being we are only able to donate for ammunition and for the arms, and our colleagues thought that it would be good for our defenders to give them the word of Ivan Franko, because the word weighs a lot and it incites you for fight, and so sometimes the words do miracles, and the spirit which guides the body to the fight. And the way we came up with this, so this is the way we came up with this idea to light up the hearts of our defenders, to help them, to support them. It has a specific format. Maybe during different times it would have been called a pocket book, and we hope that they will hold it in their pockets near their hearts, so that they can pull it at any moment and to read a little bit. On the reverse side, that there is a good symbol, there is a silhouette of Ivan Franko, which is composed of its pseudonyms and cryptonyms, and it will be useful for the fighters. If for our warriors, they could use one of the pseudonyms of Ivan Franko, creating the call signs for them. So the idea of the book was to create something light, something necessary, and something small, and I hope that it will end up in the hands of our fighters who really need them, who will read them. So we came up with this idea, and I want to thank the colleagues who are present in Lviv who supported this idea. The chairman of the International Fund of Ivan Franko, Sviatoslav Pilipchuk, and Tamara Smovzhenko, who is the head of Lviv Society in Kyiv, and director of Kyiv National University Volodymyr Bakrov, Olga Nizhnik, my deputy, who is the author of this silhouette with cryptonyms and pseudonyms, and she has my special thanks for that. So this is how we came up with this idea. The skeptics may have said that why Franco? Why is Franco? Is he so necessary in the front lines? Maybe it's not so actual. Maybe you'd better give that money for ammunition, for the arms. We do it, and we think that Franco is needed in the front lines. I think that he remains actual, and within the centuries He keeps saying things that he could keep saying today. Just now, the address of the bunker grandpa is over, and I've read the article by Franco written in 1905, if I may quote it. Ivan Franko, with his words, he could summarize the address of our enemy. Ivan Franko, within the last decades of the Russian history, it's the image of total craziness, not individual but in mass. The government officials, they get mad without resistance to their power. They lost the sense of possible and impossible without any responsibility for their deeds. They lost the sense of responsibility of what's permitted and what is prohibited. So again, this article, if we change just a couple of words, say if we replace Japan with Ukraine and year 1905 to year 2022, we can not only forecast how the things will evolve in Ukraine, but we may see what may happen, how this war may happen, how it is going on, and Franco describes it in detail there 112 years ago. And all of our dreams, for all of our hopes on liberals of Russia, whether Russia would split up, if the liberals would influence the developments in Russia. So I call all the journalists to check this article by Franco. So he's very actual for the time being. So let's just get back to the presentation of our collection that we invited you for. What's inside? What's interesting? What can be interesting for our defenders? And I would like to say that our known Frankologist Sviatoslav Pilipchuk will be able to say more about this. Mr. Sviatoslav, please get engaged in our conversation for more details. What's in this collection, how the content was picked. We understand that it was probably very difficult to pick something specific because there is a lot of things, a lot of verses that could be added to this collection, and it should be something that would not fit in a pocket, just dozens of volumes. Thank you, dear colleagues. It's really very symbolic that today's presentation is going on a very important day, the day of Ukrainian language. It's the Ukrainian language is the guard that within centuries became the first front line of resistance of Ukrainian nation against the enemy, and so that this guard is the most reliable. So that it's strong, it should be developed, and development of the Ukrainian language depends on a number of ingenious Ukrainian writers, Ukrainian poets who laid their lives for development of that language, and Ivan Franko is one of them, obviously. And it's very important that thanks to this initiative today, I appreciate all the support of Mr. Igor Kuras for this initiative. When I've heard this idea, I supported it without hesitation. It's a very important step because Franco's words should be by the heart of every Ukrainian. His word is a word that was produced by Franco through his sufferings, through his survival. Is the spiritual and intellectual charge for every Ukrainian. Back in his time, Ivan Denisuk, the Frankologist, called Franco a spokesperson of Ukrainian national idea, and it's very good identification of Franco. And ingenious Ukrainian poet Dmitro Pavlichko, who passed away recently, he said that Franco is the constructor of Ukrainian sovereignty, and such notions are not arbitrary, because the Franco's word is the foundation for Ukrainian sovereignty, and it's very important for every Ukrainian warrior. who took up the arms in the bravest manner possible, who is in the front lines fighting for Ukraine, for Ukrainian homeland, repelling the enemy, so that all of them have this spiritual foundation laid by Ivan Franko for Ukrainian sovereignty back then, and this is the very purpose this collection was created for. And talking about the content of this collection for the front line, it was very difficult to pick something specific, something principle from Franco's heritage, because all of his verses, all of his works, they have something. And in a view that the breaks between the fights, they're very short, we were trying to pick something the most concise possible, and we created 5 poetic areas that create this feast of Ivan Franko, which helps us to fight for our Ukrainian sovereignty, for our independence. So the first poetic chapter, we called it the Franco's Word. Ukraine will rise unbeaten by an enemy. It's quite a symbolic name because the enemy cannot conquer us, the enemy cannot beat us. Franco believed in it. Franco inspired Ukraine. He inspired younger generation for fight for freedom, not to be beaten, not to be taken over. And in this poetic cycle, we gathered the poems by Ivan Franko, which are the poetic fundamental that Franco expresses, through which Franco expresses his faith in the resilient spirit of Ukrainian nation. And one of the central works is the excerpt from his great anniversary poem. And he says, he pronounces those prophetic words which are very important. Everybody thinks that it depends on the destiny of millions. Everybody, and for the destiny of millions you should be responsible for. And that place in the fire is weighted on the destiny of the great war. So it's a personal responsibility of everybody. The result of the war is the personal responsibility. This is what Franco realized back then, and this is what every fighter in the front lines realizes now, and this is what should be realized by every Ukrainian right now. So the first poetic chapter in this collection is the love to Ukraine. If you know how to love Ukraine, you can love the people around you. And the second chapter is the love poetry of Ivan Franko. We called it "This is my love, weeping so bitterly." Many fighters left their homes, their loved ones at home, and this spiritual ray in the heart, the spiritual ray of light in the heart, the ray of love to their close ones, to their loved ones, is represented in this chapter, in the love poetry of Ivan Franko. He loved his life, and every warrior should feel the love to life. And the third chapter, softness and touch and joke and attempt. This is something that lets us forget those bloody scenes of murders, and we find resort in the funny word of Franco. In his poems, he entertains us with his discoveries. And in difficult life situations, during tribulations, when you face the death every day, they make us ponder over humanity. And the faith is an important matter that Franco was concerned about, and many warriors are concerned about. So the Christian motives are represented in the fourth chapter of the collection, which is called the Christ descends upon the people. We don't pay attention usually how Christian Ivan Franko is, how the ideas of humanism are all across his poetry, and this chapter represents Franco the Christian, the humanist, and the last chapter, chapter 5, is called "No, there is no friend better than the wisdom." So the life wisdom that Franco shares in his works, the important advice about how to pick friends, how to verify the friendship, how to live in the right way, how to find the right way in the crossroads of life. And this is what's represented in this collection, Franco for the Frontlines. And dear colleagues, I would like to wrap up my address with a small life story. Recently, we handed over a package for our friends. We took care of everything, the ammunition and the warm socks, and we received a response from him. It's a shame you didn't hand over any single book, so we will correct this discrepancy by handing over these books so that many of our fighters can hold Franco's book in their hand and to get to know Ukraine more profoundly and to reestablish their faith in our victory and in our future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Svetoslav. Thank you for such a marvelous address. Really, this is what probably differs us from our enemy. We don't need to say whether Franco is relevant in the front lines. We know that our defenders keep reading. They always read. They care about the cultural condition of their soul to get inspired, and this collection can get them inspired and can support them. Mrs. Tamara, please get engaged in our conversation. I'm sure you have something to add. Good afternoon, dear all. When I've read the collection of the poems by Ivan Franko, I've understood that they should be read not only by the warriors who defend our independence in the front lines, but all of us too, because those poems are actual. They inspire us to fight the Russian aggressor. Why all of us? I'll explain it. Because for us the front line is not only the forward edge of the battle area, it's also in the rear, and every Ukrainian, whether man or woman, work on our victory jointly. Ivan Franko, with his words, he supports us through the centuries. He helps us live through the sorrow, the loss of the close ones, and he shows us the place and role for all of us in the building of our state. He reinforces our faith in the people and their kindness, and I'm convinced that it's a small but very well made collection of Ivan Franko's poems. It will enable all of us to find the words of support that inspire us for fight and for faith in our strength, in our resilience, that we will stand and that we will win. The members of Lviv society in Kyiv decided to get engaged in the project and to present the collection of Franco's poems for the front lines, first of all to our warriors who go to the front lines, and also for those going to rehabilitation. The 1,000 specimens is just a drop of water in the sea. So on behalf of Lviv society, I ask all those who are indifferent to our project to get engaged, to increase the scale of publishing so that everybody who wants may read them, whether in Ukraine or outside of it. Either death or victory, blood, blood and fire. This is what creates our best homeland. Thank you, Ms. Tamara. And let's proceed to the questions from the floor, dear colleagues. If you have any, please go ahead. Ukrinform, Natalia Malchanova, thank you for this collection. You mentioned that it was only 1,000 specimens printed. Are you planning to create this scale? Maybe you will have some fundraising campaign. Do you consider an audio book or a digital book so that there are more opportunities to read this book? I will explain why we only had 1,000 specimens, because we were trying to find the channels of communication to have those books and end up in the hands of those who need them. I don't want them to get dusted in the stores. I think that my colleagues will support me. I would like to have this book carried in the chest pocket of those warriors. If the book finds its reader, I understand that there are more urgent needs which for the front lines which require more money, so we call all the people to not to like say donate money for the book rather than for the drones. No, not at all. But if we see that the book is in demand, if there is a demand for it, we will obviously increase the edition. We will find funds to increase the scale. And about the audiobook, I think we will borrow this idea from you. It's a very, very good idea. And as to the digital version, obviously it will be posted on the website. There is a website of Ivan Franko with a lot of visitors, and it will be posted there shortly. And those who can read it on their phones in the remote corners of our homeland, they can do it. But again, we did it intentionally on paper because we understand, just as a person who was a part of territorial defense forces, the military don't always have an opportunity to use their phones, so this is an archaic way of perceiving information, but sometimes it's the only one available and the safest one. So we will use all the communication channels, and we want the words of Ivan Franko to support all the fighters in the front lines. And those words that Mrs. Tamara said, with the tears in her, pronounced with the tears in her eyes, we will think that everybody will create the victory in the crowd of the free ones. Well, I will have a question. You mentioned about the importance of this edition, so that it ends up in the hands of our warriors. How do you intend to make it? Well, I know that my colleagues visited the Academy of Ground Forces, and today the graduates, they swear allegiance, and partly the edition was disseminated among the graduates of this academy. Also, we will engage the volunteers, the chaplains who live for the front lines with the fighters, or they visit the fighters in the front lines. They would be able to hand it. Well, we had a project with the Kyiv Society of Ivan Franko. They helped the boys in and our warriors in the hospital. We will disseminate this book among the wounded ones. I don't know whether everybody will get it, but it will strengthen their spirit. And for the journalists who have such contacts, of those who wish to get such book, we will hand it over to your colleagues who are in the front lines now. This is why we will use all available official and non-official channels, so that Ivan Franko ends up in the trenches in the hands of our fighters to fight all those who invade our homeland. Thank you very much for your initiative, dear colleagues. I'm reminding you, joining us were Igor Horus, Olga Nizhnik, and Tamara, Sviatoslav Pilavchuk and Tamara Smovchenko. And I want to say that let the words of Ivan Franko inspire you for the victory. So let us all be inspired for the victory by Ivan Franko. We all continue working on our victory, trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.